Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, I want to talk about how you probably know if you're doing rental real estate right. And the main difference between having a good tenant and a bad tenant, and this was taught to me by an instructor for buy and hold rental properties. He said that most of the good tenants that he has, he can't remember, but the bad tenants he surely does remember, right? And this is similar to my own experience with rental real estate. Again, I'm a noob, right? I have one rental property, and I'm going to tell you the difference between my experience and my friend's experience. So, for me, the most frustrating thing that I had to experience in rental real estate was finding a tenant. And so we put the rental property in the market in around January, and I just got a bunch of, I don't know if I could call them jokesters or just people who just ghosted me because I had the application on Zillow, and they contact me, say, "Hey, yeah, I'll come over to the property, and then we'll look at it together." And then most of them never even showed up. And if I have to drive 30 minutes away from my house to the rental property, and no one's going to show up, this is why I just schedule group showings on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays. I don't ever show a property on the weekday because if I have to drive and I'm busy on the weekday 30 minutes and nobody shows, then it's a complete waste of my time, right? So that was the most hard or the most infuriating experience for me as a rental property owner is just finding the tenant. And there was one tenant or one prospect who tried to like negotiate less than market rate by pointing everything wrong with the house. And then, the next day somebody called me and said, "I'll give you a year's worth of rent." And so I don't know, that prospect got mad that I wouldn't, accept his offer because why would I do that? That makes no sense, right? All right. So eventually I did get a tenant, and that was the hardest part. And ever since then, it's been a good experience because I honestly cannot remember that I even have a rental property from time to time, and I actually have to like remind myself, like with like Google notifications, like, hey, remind yourself to let the tenant know that the tenant owes rent because we don't. Um, I don't get paid monthly. I get paid every couple of months with the rental property. And so if the rent check is due, I literally have to remind myself like, yo, yeah, you own a rental property, right? And the type of rental property I own is a single family home. I bought it at $100,000 discount. I can't remember that I have a rental property. And the thing I think is really important is education, right? Why is it that so many people are opposed to taking classes when it comes to like real estate investing if it's not marketed in a way where it's like, oh, you're going to get results in like, 2 months and own 20 rental properties under a year or something like that, right? Like, I don't ever push that message that I guarantee anything or that you're going to have successful results in, a certain amount of time. But I always like to be honest and keep it real with you. But at the same time, I feel like education is important because it's going to prevent you from falling into the mind traps of what can happen. So I'm going to share you my experience versus my friend. So one of the things that I do is if you ever get on a Zoom call with me, I actually show you like, hey, here's some education classes that you can take if you want to be part of the group, and here's some prices. And um, I actually try to share it with people that I know who want to get into real estate, right? Like it's not for everybody. Real estate is not for everybody. Like, if you're interested in running a restaurant and you have no interest in real estate, buying and selling real estate, I totally understand that, right? But if you tell me you're interested in real estate, then I'm going to try to sell you some classes, which I make a commission, going to be 100% upfront that I do make a commission off of it, but at the same time, it's for you. It's not really for me. Like I don't need your money. Like I'm gonna be totally honest with you that I do not need your money. And so one of the things that happened is that my friend, I tried to share with that person the education, and that person essentially said, "Ah, no, I'm good." And so I'm going to tell you what my friend's experience was dealing with the tenant being a new landlord. So my friend bought a triplex in a major city and essentially inherited tenants. Right? Inheriting tenants is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think inheriting tenants in a multifamily is a little bit harder than a single family because there are ways to structure deals so that the tenants feel like, not I'm not necessarily saying they're going to have ownership, but they feel like they're going to be an owner. Whereas with the triplex, they're essentially going to treat it like an apartment, right? And the difference between renting out single family homes and apartments is that people move out of apartments much quicker than single family homes, mostly because they have a lot more stuff in the single family home. It's much harder for them to move and they get too comfortable. Whereas with apartment, it's hard to get, it's easy to get not comfortable and just decide I want my own home, right? People, like, it's like a level of graduation. Apartment is like the first level, and then the single family home is like the next level, right? So if they rent one, they're going to stay there for more time than they would normally with apartment. But again, dealing with inherited tenants in a multifamily, um, it could be a little bit stressful, especially in a major city. And if you know how major cities work, they're usually anti-landlord, right? I can't even think of one, let's say, major city, let's say the capital or well-known city like San Francisco, that is pro landlord, right? And my friend knows this too, so I'm like scratching my head, like, why would you do that, right? It's kind of weird, but our education actually tells you don't buy rental property in tenant friendly areas or areas that are going tenant friendly. That's what the instructor says. So I know that I'm not, for example, in my case, I'm not going to buy property in the city of Atlanta. Don't want to deal with it because the city of Atlanta, I don't know at what point, actually almost voted in rent control, but lost by one vote. And so, if I have a city that's kind of leaning towards that direction, and I want to be a landlord, I'm not going to set myself up to fail to get a rental property there. No, thank you, right? And I think they also have an ordinance that you can only have two Airbnbs in that city, and you have to live in one of them as your primary residence, right? So, my friend, triplex in major city, and the issue is that my friend is always reminded of being an owner of a rental, right? Because the tenants always need something. I can't even remember the last time the tenant ever needed anything from me, right? I just get paid the rent. Oh my goodness, I I forgot that I rent a property until the rent check comes in and I'm good. And that's when truly passive income occurs, when you get a check in the mail when you don't even want it, right? Like you get a check in the mail, like, oh my goodness, where'd this come from? And the hardest part of being a landlord is selecting the tenant. Now, one of my mentors would actually argue that inheriting tenants is a good thing because that means the house is habitable and you don't have to make any repairs. That is true, right? That is very, very true. But if you have a multifamily unit, and this is just my opinion, it's much harder to have a value proposition to your tenant that makes them want to take care of the house, right? Very different from single family, at least the mentality is. Okay. And the other thing too is that my friend just simply refused to take classes, right? Like simply refused. And again, I took classes for several years before I even started to do real estate because a lot of it was just fear inside my head, and at the same time, it's also having to learn many concepts, and this includes velocity banking. So I learned about velocity banking. I learned how to market, find leads, negotiate, learning how to learning about all the aspects of buy and hold or being a landlord. And I don't know what it is, but people just don't. I don't know if they think it's just really simple and they can do it. But here's the thing about being an adult, right? And I'm not just talking about being a landlord in general. There's no congratulations for success and just really only punishment for failure. That's like a general rule. So I mean, think about this. If you've known someone who is a landlord and owns many properties and is doing well, do you really want to congratulate them? You might be a little bit quiet and be a little bit jealous of them, right? I know that certainly happened to me. And so when I have one successful rental and I say, "Oh my goodness, the tenant is paying me, 10 grand or 14 grand every 6 months or so," and I kind of want to brag about it, no one's really going to congratulate me because you don't get congratulations for success. People might, look at on be on the looky loo and like, ooh, like, on the inside, think about like that's what they want, but they're not going to directly congratulate you. You know what I'm saying? Whereas, if you screw up, you could feel it, right? And this is what happens with rental real estate if you have bad tenants, right? Or you inherit bad tenants, and that's probably why the owner wanted to sell, right? Like, and the funny thing is, my friend who's actually been a landlord for less time than I have, I think I've been a landlord for a little bit more than a year, and my friend was only a landlord since last September, which is about maybe 6 months or so, is already thinking about selling. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is the most passive experience ever. And if the tenant moves out, then I have a 2 acre farm to myself that I can use for my own personal use. Right? It's a single family home in a slightly rural. It's classified as rural, but it's like 15 minutes away from Home Depot. So it's kind of like you get the best of both worlds. At least I think so. Or maybe that's how I convinced myself to buy it. But as I said before, there's no congratulations for success and only punishment for failure. And that's why education is important, right? Because kind of like learning how to drive a car before you drive it, it's probably much safer to do that so that you don't crash the car and then you learn how to drive. And this is what happens with a lot of people with real estate in general. I don't know if you ever heard the statistics, but 93% of people regret buying a home in 2023, right? And so that's when the car crash is happening, and then that's when people are thinking, "Oh my goodness, they need to take classes or something like that," right? But again, um, I'm on a mission to find people who want to be educated or are okay with taking a little bit of time of receiving and studying that knowledge before they go into real estate. It's really weird how real estate is like one of the only fields where people feel like they can just do it without any sort of study and just be successful at it, right? Like, I don't know if this is because of social media or because of the real estate influencer culture that has been pretty much active since like the 80s and 90s. Like, if you ever see those old infomercials, it's about how real estate is so easy, OMG, right? But if you ever talk with me one on one, I'm always going to tell you take classes if you want to be part of the group. So here's the thing. This is essentially a plug for my group and showing you the experience between me and my friend who did not take classes and I did. Now, I'm not saying that um I have like 200 rental properties. If you want someone who has an insane amount of rental properties and is doing insane deals, I'm going to refer you to Stephen Nomura, right? Look up Stephen Nomura, who is essentially affiliated with the same group that I am. But again, if you're just interested in talking to me and joining your group, go ahead and click the Google form link below. So what is this? This is essentially a plug for education, right? The why it's important to take classes, not only learn about velocity banking, learn how to find deals, learn not just to buy any old property, learn about the ins and outs of being a landlord, um, before you get into it, right? It's really important. Or else you're going to be like my friend, just incredibly frustrated. I don't know about you, but if you ever buy and sell a property, let's say in 1 year, and you don't take a huge, massive discount on buying the property, you're essentially going to lose money, right? It's crazy how that works. And that's one of the things that you learn with us too. Anyways, all right. So this is Korean Atlanta Mentorship, just another plug for a group. Yeah. So I don't know if you're already a rental property owner and you're thinking, hey, I might need some education and classes to help me out, because I'll be honest, in our one-on-one Zoom calls that I've talked to prospects to join our group, I've met people who had like 8 to 9 rental properties and they lost it all. I met a gentleman who owned, I think, like one rental property and then gave it up just because, like, again, having the same experiences as my friend. And I don't know why people are so against education, but I feel a lot of that resistance when I end that one-on-one Zoom call. And to me, maybe it's just me. I'm just like, I have no experience or interest in this, but I just want to make sure that I do things right, right? All right. Well, click the Google form link below if you want a one-on-one chat, and then we'll go from there. Have a great day, and we'll speak next time.